Hello and welcome to the news for Tuesday, August 19th. And once again, there is a lot of news coming from all around the world. Australia, of course, and America, and the world is all eyes on as we look to see if there can be a peaceful resolution to the Russia-Ukraine war. Well, in some surprising breaking news today, Warwick Stacey, the newly elected One Nation Senator for New South Wales in the federal parliament, has announced he will be standing down. He's resigning, citing personal health reasons. The One Nation Senator took the sixth and final seat for New South Wales in the federal poll in May, but has decided to step down, citing personal health issues. And on a statement on One Nation's website, Warwick Stacey has said that, in fact, it reads, he's resigned from the Senate for personal health reasons, creating a casual vacancy in the Australian Parliament's upper house. One Nation leader, Senator Pauline Hanson, gave her full support and admiration to Senator Stacey, who announced his resignation today. He's a man of principle and a great Australian. She said, it is with profound regret that we farewell him from the Senate so soon after he was elected. I was delighted when it was announced Senator Stacey had won a seat representing New South Wales. I knew he would bring a wealth of knowledge, experience and expertise to our team, along with the strong conservative values that made Australia great. I wish Senator Stacey all the very best with his health and his future. Stacey said he could not, in good conscience, bring anything less than 100% dedicated effort to his role as Senator for New South Wales. Unfortunately, I'll be unable to fully dedicate myself to the role as I deal with my personal health issues, he said. I don't think a person elected to Parliament should be anything less than completely dedicated to a role entrusted to them by the voters, so I'm resigning to make way for someone who can do that on behalf of the people of New South Wales. Well, that is a big shock and a big loss for One Nation, but it will certainly open the door as the 72-year-old will now have to be replaced by someone else, someone younger. Who knows who's going to step up? It's ironic that Craig Kelly was in One Nation and quit the party, and he would have been in Stacey's shoes right now. Will One Nation reach out outside of its party? Unlikely, but you just think of how many people could be brought in that situation to be able to really build a rearguard action. So what is on the table there for Pauline? So big story nonetheless. Now, in other news in Australia, we've learnt from JP Drake, who is the director of the family-owned Drake's supermarket chain. He sat down for an interview with a former army soldier, Sam Banford, on his Two Worlds Collide podcast, where the pair discussed issues including the cost of living crisis, the national debt and immigration pressures. So Drake's, established in 1974, operates more than 60 supermarkets in South Australia and Queensland, employing some 6,000 people. Now, what was so interesting about this particular discussion was that he was explaining how difficult it was to get staff, even operating in a town with 23% unemployment.
You know, I can give you some examples. That, like, we've got a distribution centre in Edinburgh North, and that area has a 23% unemployment rate. I'm importing people from Vanuatu because I can't get workers to work in my site.
What?
Yeah.
That's 23% unemployment rate.
In the area.
And you can't get workers?
No. So you think, oh, that's just Drake. So I got these Vanuatu crew come over. They're unbelievable. Their work ethic is amazing. They're at work with a carload, multiple, every single one of them. They act as a family, as a tribe together, and they work as a team.
I bet you they feel blessed as well.
Oh, mate, they're loving it.
Like they've probably got a golden ticket.
English is not the best, but mate, they are smiling. They're happy.
Europe's leaders converged on the White House today for the big Russia-Ukraine meeting. Now, we were not necessarily expecting a ceasefire, but that was, of course, on the table. But it came down to security guarantees for Ukraine and the idea of land swapping. But there was a whole lot of praise for Donald Trump from his seeming, political enemies who were laying the praise on, starting here with Emmanuel Macron of France.
Thank you, Mr. President, for organizing this meeting and for your commitment. And everything was said, but I just have to say here, everybody around this table is in favor of peace. And we work very hard, and we've worked very hard during the past few years to have a peace which is a robust and long-standing peace. This is why the idea of a trilateral meeting is very important because this is the only way to fix it.
Meanwhile, the president, he wanted a ceasefire, even if you can't achieve it right now. It's important to end the war.
All of us would obviously prefer an immediate ceasefire while we work on a lasting peace, and maybe something like that could happen. As of this moment, it's not happening, but President Zelensky and President Putin can talk a little bit more about that. You know, in the 6 or so wars that we stopped, we haven't had a ceasefire. And so I don't know that it's necessary. You can do it through the war. But it would be, I like the ceasefire from another standpoint. You immediately stop the killing. But I believe a peace agreement at the end of all of this is something that's very attainable, and it can be done in the near future. With all of the wars that I got involved in, we only have this one left. Of course, as I walk out the door, there'll probably be a new one starting, and I'll get that stopped too. But I thought this was going to be one of the easier ones. It's actually one of the most difficult. They're very complex. The next step would be for a trilateral meeting, and that will be worked out. And I just look forward to working and having a great result.
There you go. So whilst the mainstream news are trying to tell you that Trump is not achieving anything, so what happened over the Biden years? Odd that there was no comments there. The opposite holds. Well, here is Laura, or part of Laura Ingram's report this evening from Fox News.
As I said before, broke the deadlock basically with President Putin by starting that dialogue. I think if we play this well, we could end this.
The path is open. You opened it last Friday. Now the way is open for complicated negotiations.
We are here to work together with you on a just and lasting peace.
I'm sure that we'll be able to find a solution, find and get a lasting and just peace.
I think that we had very good conversation with President Trump, and we spoke about very sensitive points. The first one is security guarantees, and we are very happy with President that all the leaders are here.
What the world saw today is the Trump effect. Zelensky and the Western world gathered for hours in Washington because Donald Trump summoned them not to rally for war, but to huddle for peace. Now, just days after Vladimir Putin traveled to the United States to meet Trump, his first trip in 10 years to the U.S., the president of Ukraine, NATO Secretary General, the German Chancellor, and other European heads of state met to talk about finding a pathway to end this horrid bloodshed. Now, we don't even know how many people, remember, have died in this war in Ukraine, but the number could be as high as 1 million Russians and Ukrainians lost, their lives gone. Surveys are showing that the people want peace. The fight to the finish attitude of Ukrainians has given way to reality. They want this war to end. And American support for the war has been declining, with the majority of Americans now saying it is not our responsibility to help Ukraine defend itself. The war is not going to be ended on the battlefield. It's obvious that Russia will not stop grinding through its troops. And it's equally as obvious that as long as China and India will keep buying Russian oil and their ag, Putin will have the money to feed his war machine. And as I said earlier, he worked the phones during this marathon meeting today, calling Putin in the middle of his talks with the Europeans and Zelensky. The man just simply doesn't stop.
We'll see, and in a certain period of time, not very far from now, a week or 2 weeks, we're going to know whether or not we're going to solve this, or is this horrible fighting going to continue? We'll do our best to get it ended. And I believe you have two willing parties, and usually that's good news, but two willing parties that want to make a deal. And we'll journey together, and we'll go over and we'll see if it can be done.
Pragmatism. That's what we need. Now, that's what a peacemaker sounds like. And every patriotic American with a heart should be hoping tonight that President Trump succeeds. And that's the angle.
Meanwhile, the Democrats, they've got their nose out of joint and are saying that Trump is trying to suppress the vote. Well, you watch this clip and make up your mind as Trump addresses the elephant in the room around elections.
So between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said, the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in. And it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it, because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected. Because with men and women's sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things, and now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad. I hate to take your time with this, but I'm glad you asked me that question. Sorry. We're going to stop mail-in ballots because it's corrupt.
Meanwhile, over at the World Economic Forum, they have decided to appoint Larry Fink, BlackRock CEO, as WEF's interim co-chair. There you go, alongside Roche's Andre Holfman. So the WEF has appointed Fink as its interim co-chair. The move comes hot on the heels of a high-profile internal review that cleared WEF founder Klaus Schwab of wrongdoing and set the stage for a temporary leadership overhaul as the organisation recalibrates its governance model. With trillions in assets under management, BlackRock commands outsized influence across financial markets, ESG policy, and the investment strategies of governments and corporations. Fink's interim appointment is a strategic move that could accelerate the institutional adoption of digital assets like Bitcoin within global policy forums and mainstream financial infrastructure. Fink's appointment comes at a time when questions around institutional trust, sustainability, and cross-border cooperation are more acute than ever. Under Fink's guidance, BlackRock has been a pioneer of environmental, social and governance investing, according to the article, pushing for a more climate-resilient global economy, a priority that has increasingly permeated WEF dialogues in Davos and beyond. Meanwhile, here is Larry Fink as he argues that developed nations with declining populations, well, they may benefit from AI, robotics, offsetting labour shortages with productivity gains.
I can argue in the developed countries, the big winners are countries that have shrinking populations. Okay, that's something that most people never talked about. You know, we always used to think shrinking population is a cause for negative growth. But in my conversations with the leadership of these large developed countries that have xenophobic immigration policies, they don't allow anybody to come in, shrinking unemployment, shrinking demographics, these countries will rapidly develop robotics and AI and technology. And if the promise, I didn't say it's going to happen, but if the promise of all that transforms productivity, which most of us think it will, we'll be able to elevate the standard of living of countries, the standard of living of individuals, even with shrinking populations. And so the paradigm of negative population growth is going to be changing. And the social problems that one will have in substituting humans for machines is going to be far easier in those countries that have declining populations. And so for those countries that have rising populations, the answer will be education, and so rapidly develop. You know, for those countries that do not have a foundation of rule of law or education, they're going to be left. That's where the divide's going to get more and more extreme. And unfortunately,
more and more extreme. And you wonder, is it a result of a plan or an accident? And I know what you're thinking right there. Meanwhile, Yuval Harari, staying with the WEF for a moment, well, he's doubling down on efforts, explaining how he believes medicine of the future will work.
IBM, the big corporation, is now developing an artificial intelligence called Watson, which is supposed to first help doctors and then replace doctors in making a diagnosis. For an AI like Watson, it is easy to have instant access to my entire medical history. Every disease I ever had, my DNA scanning, all the blood tests I ever took, and not only of me, but also of my parents and siblings and neighbors. You can carry the AI as a doctor with you in your pocket, in a mobile phone. Watson can be an application on your mobile phone. So even if I leave my home country of Israel and go to Beijing or go to Seoul and suddenly I feel sick. The doctor is with me 24 hours a day in every point in the world. He can constantly monitor my biometric data with the help of new biometric sensors. And when it detects that something is wrong, it immediately alerts the person, look, it's connected to the mobile phone, and it can alert the person, look, something is wrong, take your medicine. AI, a doctor AI like Watson, constantly measuring, monitoring many different biometric signals in your body will be able to detect the beginning of diseases like cancer in a very early stage when it is relatively easy to do something about it. Of course, all this will necessitate to violate human privacy. Companies like Apple and Google will have tons and tons of data on your body, on your most private affairs and conditions. But my impression as a historian, not as a biologist, my impression as a historian is that when the public, people, will be given a choice between health and privacy, they will mostly choose health, not privacy. So privacy will decline, but the kind of health services that IBM Watson could provide for us will make current human doctors seem incredibly primitive.
Amazing, isn't it? Create the disease, create the solution, and then, of course, achieve the agenda by, oh, well, you'll just trade off your privacy, therefore. Or will you? But how is it that you're supposed to trade off your privacy as opposed to it being taken from you out of convenience? Your safety, your convenience, every single time. Meanwhile, the head of the WHO, the other globalist organisation intent on telling you how to live your life, even though they can't find out which diseases were actually created by man or not, here's Ted Ross begging for more money as usual.
As we all know, we face many challenges. Drastic cuts in aid, coupled with misinformation about the safety of vaccines, threaten to unwind decades of progress. We live in a world in which nations seem more intent on harming than helping each other. I think President Mahama has already given an example. Our children should not be the ones to pay the price. Vaccines save lives. They allow individuals, families, communities, economies, and nations to flourish. To put it simply, Gavi's success is the world's success. And that's why a fully funded Gavi is essential for a healthier, safer, and fairer world. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all those who have pledged today, and I hope this will continue and Gavi will be fully funded. Thank you.
Staying with health for the moment, and Nick Holscher has published a new study, fembendazole, linked to remission or near remission in 3 stage 4 cancer patients. Breast, prostate, and melanoma patients experience dramatic tumour regression and long-lasting remission without chemotherapy. In the article, Holscher has explained case 1, stage 4 breast cancer patient, 83-year-old woman with widely metastatic ER/PR positive, HER2 negative breast cancer involving the liver, lungs, and spine. The treatment with these particular courses, the outcome within 8 months, tumour markers normalised and PET scans confirmed no evidence of disease. Case 2, prostate cancer, 75-year-old man with recurrent metastatic prostate cancer, spine, pelvis, humerus, and lymph nodes. Well, the outcome of bone and lymph node metastases, PSA remained undetectable for over 2 years, near complete remission at 26 months. Incredible. And case 3, stage 4 melanoma, 63-year-old man with recurrent metastatic melanoma, also diagnosed with urothelial carcinoma. outcome. Circulating tumour dropped from 123 to 0 in under 2 months. Imaging confirmed complete remission with no evidence of disease. Patient remains recurrence-free 11 months later. So Nick explains the mechanisms of actions in this particular article. You can find it there on Substack if you like. Focus Points is the name of the Substack page that you can find it on, and the conclusions there. This is only the second published case series documenting humour cancer remissions linked to fenbendazole use. Strikingly, 2 of the 3 patients achieved no evidence of disease or rare outcome in advanced stage 4 cancers, he writes. However, he also notes patients are self-medicated without controlled oversight. All use fenbendazole alongside other treatments, making causality unclear. Spontaneous remission, though rare, cannot be excluded. Still, the consistency across the cases, different cancers, different regimens, same outcome, regression or remission signals a phenomenon too important to miss. And given its cheap costs, etc., it needs to be studied more. Such an important thing that we've just noticed there. Now, also happening today, big story out of the US, Chairman Rep. James Comer confirms the Department of Justice will begin sending House Oversight documents related to Jeffrey Epstein on Friday. And this comes at a time when Bill Barr has been testifying that he didn't see info that would implicate Donald Trump in the Epstein case. And this is the same Bill Barr, whose father employed Jeffrey Epstein as a prep school teacher. And they were reminded here in this article dating back to 2019 of their flamboyantly dressed teacher, Jeffrey Epstein. So Donald Barr, Dalton's headmaster and father of Attorney General Bill Barr, hired Epstein to teach maths and science. You really can't make this stuff up.
Barr's testimony before the House Oversight Committee is kicking off a series of high-profile closed-door depositions. Those are intended to extend through mid-October, including subpoenas issued for Hillary and Bill Clinton. That's all part of the probe into Epstein's crimes and the Justice Department's handling of that case. Mr. Barr's time as Attorney General spanned Epstein's 2019 arrest, his later death at Metropolitan Correctional Center, which he called appalling, as well as Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest. Now, additionally, tomorrow is the deadline the committee has given for the complete DOJ records on the case. So will that deadline be met?
Well, we're having really good conversations. You have to understand you can imagine how many documents there are. I think that we're going to have I think we'll receive the documents very soon.
So there is bipartisan interest in this case, and some see the interest by Democrats as newfound. I mean, they had 4 years to dive into this case. Some see it as them now seeing this case as a way to dig at the current president.
Remains to be one of the greatest mysteries, secrets, and the blackmail program that's been able to control, it seems, via blackmail. Now, we know what we know so far, but we haven't had enough confirmation for it to change the trajectory of history. And so it is that we are getting closer and closer, but will we get there at the end of the day? So Channel 51 News, we went out and interviewed Cathy O'Brien, one of the world's most known MKUltra victims, this morning, and it will be released at 7:30 p.m. this evening at channel51.com.au in full. Here is part of what she said today.
It's the same formula, with trauma being the basis of it. And in my case, being used on a White House, Pentagon level, I needed to be totally robotic. I needed to be absolutely disarmed. So I was not used as in any assassin capacity. You know, I mean, you don't do that and get around those people. They needed the safety and security of knowing that I was 100% totally robotic. I'm not the only one that was used on a White House, Pentagon level. Marilyn Monroe was considered the first presidential model mind control slave. We can look at Maggie Trudeau. She was a presidential model in Canada. MK Ultra mind control. Pierre Trudeau was a master of MK Ultra of individuals, nations, and the world. And she was an MK Ultra mind control sex slave. Who knows who Justin's father really is? But I think we all have clues. But you know, we consider the fact that Pierre Trudeau is the one who raised him, and he was very much behind the pedophile agenda, very much for creating Manchurian candidate family line mind control slaves. So, as we look at the White House, the presidential model, MK Ultra mind control slaves, it gives us a second look at these wives that are out there on a global scale.
One of the most incredible things about Cathy O'Brien is, despite the fact that she was tortured to within an inch of her life and was eventually saved by a man working for the CIA, Mark Phillips, she is not only a survivor, but she only sees the absolute good and the possibility of people working out what's really going on in what would be called a great awakening. When we pieced it all together towards the end of the interview, I framed it for her in a way to see if I could test if this was for real. Take a look. And therefore, when you look at it through a political lens at the moment, that all of these stories coming together at the exact same time, Russiagate, in relation also to Ukraine, Russia today, the negotiations still not at a ceasefire, but at the same time coming to a head, all of those European leaders getting on a plane, arriving at the White House together, literally sitting outside the office waiting for him. It's an extraordinary photograph that we've seen pop up in that regard. I've actually got it here for you. Have a look at this. This is the leaders waiting for Trump, literally waiting outside the principal's office. It's just unbelievable. So just to bring things to a head. Now, at the same time, we've got this House Oversight Committee going forward. Bill Barr, that's another one coming to a head there. And if we are to see arrests finally, one way or another, at least indictments and some judgments and truth, then people might start to realize, hang on a second, Trump's just changed the economy. He's talking about removing income taxes for those earning below $150,000 a year. Yes, there are tariffs, etc., but that's part of this whole redistributing in favor of Americans. If you can then create a prospering American economy and give hope to young people or any people that they can, buy a home and live the American dream once again, it would then stand to reason that the people that have now been put in handcuffs were the problem all along. It's almost as if there's going to be a mushroom cloud effect at that point. So given that, I just feel like the timing, it has never been more purposeful right now, plus the fact next year you've got the midterms. It all has to be over in the next 13 months or it will never happen. And therefore, could this well be the moment in history we've been waiting for our whole lives?
It could be. I love the way you put it like that. And it's definitely a possibility. And if the economy does improve like that, then people aren't going to have to be working round the clock. They'll finally get some rest. They'll be able to buy nutritious food. So we're breaking the whole cycle that we've been under. And if people are held accountable for their actions, if there's consequences for crimes against humanity, humanity wins. We've got to find a way to stop the reign of terror that has been going on for decades now.
Well, there you go. Cathy O'Brien, you will get the full interview tonight from 7:30 p.m. on channel51.com.au, and the rest of the week's lineups there. Dr. John Brady tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. on the 51st State. Scott Wheeler, channel51.com.au, part 2 of the Clinton crime series. And then you'll get straight from the vault 9/11 Truth with Richard Gage, 7 p.m. Friday and 4 p.m. Saturday. Dr. William Mackus, the first of 2 interviews, will be released at jasonqcitizen.substack.com. If you'd like to support the news and all of the work that I'm doing, channel51.com.au, you can become a free subscriber, or you can join up and pay just $51 for an entire year, which works out at just 98 cents per week. Well, it's been a great show once again. Thanks for your company. Thanks for your support. Really appreciate it. We'll see you all on the next.